So you have Cain, and Cain kills Abel. So there's no bloodline coming out of him. So then Cain is cursed, right? He has to bear the mark of Cain. So what does that mean? Is that a bloodline thing? Is that a physical thing? Does that mean that everybody out of his bloodline is cursed? Well, if you go back and you look at the numerics of it, right? Cain has a child. Cain has 2 children. Cain has 5 children, 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever. Depending on how many children he has, depends on how fast population grew. So, if he had 52 children, and those, or 50, and those 2 children, right, and those 50 children each had 2 children apiece, that would double the population. And then the next generation would quadruple the population. And the next generation, as long as they went up incrementally, where it's by 2s. If every child has at least 2 children, they can have as many as they want, but the minimum is 2. You're looking at a huge population in a very small amount of time. But the questionable debate is, at what point did the Nephilim, because it's the 200 fallen, so that would mean that in order for time to work the way I think it would have to be some kind of jealousy. Like Lucifer is sitting up there praising God, leading worship, and at some point he is like, I'm better than God. Like that thought came from somewhere. And then it became, hey everybody, follow me, I'm better than God. And then it became, you're not welcome in my home, get out. And the devil being like, I'll fight you. And God said, you fight me and what, lose? Okay, come on, fight me then. So the devil gets, cast out of heaven because he lost. And it says in Revelation he's going to lose again and be chained up. But people are into that. When you look at it, you look at the genetics of it. So it's argued that Lucifer is a cherubim. And it's interesting because the cherubim was set outside the garden to guard the garden from Adam and Eve from the tree of life. So they partook of the tree of knowledge. They did not partake of the tree of life. If you go back in Genesis and you reread it, it says that the cherubim was set up at the entrance of the garden to protect from the man from eating of the tree of life, or something to that effect. So it says that we partook of the tree of good, the knowledge of good and evil. So that just means that we're self-aware. We're aware of sin, and we can cause sin, and we cause sin pretty much from first breath. We're on a path of destruction. So, 1 second. No, but anyway. So if you have Cain, and Cain has 2 sons, and those 2 sons have 4. How long is it going to be before you're going to have, a 10,000 strong city? I wouldn't think long. But how long would a demonic angel, because I can't really honestly stop and think that the angels all rebelled because the humans looked so fine. Like, to me, that seems a little far-fetched. The angelic creatures were so hard up that they, species hopped. Because, some of them are similar. It talks about the four mythical beasts and, the different angelic creatures. And some of them are human-ish. But, others, we have a lion head and an eagle head and a bull head and, covered in many eyes and such like that. It'd be a little weird. You see a person in a bar and they turn around and they're covered in eyes. And you're like, oh, I think I'm good. You have a good night. It's just like, no thank you. I don't even want to have a conversation with you because you're going to be staring at me. Literally. Like, it's just, no. It's interesting because when you go back and you look at it, it's like, okay, I can believe that the angels took human wives. That makes sense. But the extent to it is where I'm really confused, because when you go and you look at Greek mythology, I guarantee you every one of those deities is based off of a fallen angel or a descendant of it. I believe that all of the perversion we see, all of the giants that we see throughout history, all of the orcs, all of the cyclops, the giants, the Bigfoot, the sea monsters, like all of those weird aberrations, I almost 1,000% guarantee that it has to be a descendant of a Nephilim, because, it's gene manipulation. If you go back and you look at the threat that Lucifer had with Eve, he basically cursed her children. And when he cursed her children, it's interesting to me because I will taint your bloodline. Like, Satan was so upset, I think, at humanity's, option of redemption, while Lucifer's sin had no redemption. And the difference is ignorance. So when Adam and Eve sinned, they didn't realize the weight of what they were doing when they did it. So God was like, look, I don't want to spend eternity separated from the people that I created to spend time with. And it's so interesting because it's like, people want to, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Your purpose is to spend time with God. Get to know Him. There's nothing wrong with getting to know God. Being quiet. Learning how to listen. Learning how to quiet yourself. Learn how to quiet that storm in your heart. Yeah, it's difficult. But when you quiet your heart and you quiet your mind and you listen to God, you're going to understand things you didn't understand before. You're going to be able to do things you didn't do before. But when you look at Lucifer's rebellion, his rebellion was different because he understood what he was doing. He understood that what he was saying was treason. He was more than just a worship leader. Just because your job title is worship leader doesn't mean that you don't know how to swing a sword or give your life. It's so beautifully strange to me because we don't understand the weight of our depravity until there's a consequence for it. And there's a deep loathing hatred that Lucifer has towards humanity because we have the option of redemption. Because we were given that option of, hey, look, if any man believe in Christ, confess with his mouth that he lived, died, gave his life on the cross for our sins, and then rose again after 3 days. If you believe that 100%, then there it is. And if you don't believe it, I hope that you come to the knowledge of it. But if you believe that 100%, and you believe that, Jesus lived, he died, and he rose again for you, to have that opportunity to have a fellowship with God. It wasn't for nothing. The whole reason of it is He sowed blood because blood was spilled, blood was taken, an oath was broken, a new oath was written. There was a contractual breaking when Adam partook of the fruit. He gave license of death to the devil. That's what was going on there. Adam didn't realize he was a deed holder. And when he took the apple, he dropped his contract on the ground. As soon as he took that bite, his contract was up. He then had to relinquish his authority, his control, his power to a different will. And I don't think we really understand the weight of that consequence, because we just see, oh, Adam ate of the fruit. Yeah, Adam ate of the fruit. He gave over his contract. The earth was contractually Adam's. He said, take this woman and go make babies. After you get done naming all the animals, your next job is to go forth and multiply. And he did. That's where we came from. And all of this debate about cavemen and all this doesn't line up with the Bible. And if it doesn't line up with the Bible, I don't believe it. I was always taught that the Bible is a history book. 100% history book. It is the first history book ever to exist. And I was always taught to believe that. And when you look at everything that they teach you in public education, it is cross-grained to the Bible on purpose. So I just question it 100%. 100%. I just don't understand where they get the idea of some of this stuff. Because it said that, Adam named every creature, and that all of creation was made in 6 days. And God spoke, and there was the earth. And God divided the light from the dark. And God created the waters. And God created the land. And then God created the birds. And God created the insects. And then God created man. So, where's the millions of years? There's no millions of years there. And that's sort of the upsetting part, is there's just a blue pill, red pill swallow, because everybody's going to teach you that evolution is 100%. Every school you walk into, every higher education you're going to experience, everybody's going to unilaterally say, yeah, millions of years ago, blah, blah, blah. That's the standard that's taught. And it's interesting because there's no A or B. It's just this is what's taught. And you want to separate church and state. Okay, cool. I hear you. But then you have whatever doctrine that the whomever wants to teach being pushed. If they're trying to teach from a Catholic perspective or a Christian perspective, then the earth is 6 to 10,000 years old. If we're going by a modern education, public education, higher education, they're all going to unilaterally say that the earth is millions of years old, 64 million years old, 134 million years old, 4 trillion years old, whatever. And that's how they justify time frames. Because if the earth isn't 64 million years ago, then there had to have been a great flood that caused an ungodly amount of sediment to bury things in possibly deep layers. It says that water came up out of the ground. Do you know what that would do? What kind of upheaval that would cause? And it says that the water stood upon the earth for 150 days. Do you know how long 150 days is? That's half a year. It's 20 days shy of 25 days shy of half a year. And it's okay, that's a long time. And it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Yeah, so that's it's a little over a month and 10 days. And then 150 days. And then he stayed in the ark for another, I think, 2 months while the rain and the water dissipated. And then from there, he came out and burned an offering, and God said, I won't do that again. And Moses said, same. And then he put up a rainbow, and that was the sign of God's promise. But now, what does the rainbow mean? The rainbow means pride, and the rainbow is supposed to mean a promise. I promise to value you. Do you value somebody? Shit. I have to go soon. But, when you have an experience where you meet God face to face in a burning bush situation, or you get swallowed by a whale, or you are born with super strength, and then you lose your sight and you lose your strength, and you ask for it back so you can kill a bunch of people. Or, somebody goes to take Jesus and you cut his ear off with a sword, and you watch Jesus put it right on back. Or, you walk on water. You walk on water towards Jesus, and then you start to sink because you lose your focus. And you're the same guy that says, nah, I don't know him. You're the same guy that Jesus looked at and said, from you I'm going to build my house, because you are a rock. And it's just like the idea behind just being that unqualified in the tangible. Like, by every measure, you are not fit for the job. You are not fit for service. But yet you're picked. And that's sort of wild to me, because if you go back and you look at Jonah and you look at Noah, Jonah was like, listen, God, we cool, you're my boy, all that. I like serving you on Sundays, but what you're asking me to do is go to another city, and it's a rough part of town, and I don't want to go. There's a bunch of whores and drugs, and I don't like it. I don't want to go. And God's like, nah, listen. I'm about to kill them, so I need you to go, say something to them before I just, wipe them off the face of the earth. And Jonah was like, what about the flood? He goes, I didn't say flood. I said I'm not going to flood the earth again. I didn't say anything else about anything else. I only said I won't flood the earth again. Okay. All right. And he said whole earth. He didn't even, leave parts of it off. He was just like, I won't ever flood the whole earth. God left that way open for interpretation. That part scares me a little bit. I didn't say I wouldn't kill a bunch of people. I didn't say I wouldn't, wipe civilizations off the face of the earth. I didn't say I wouldn't. I said, I wouldn't do the whole thing all at once. There's been several times when God was told a group of people to destroy another group of people. If you go back and you look at the Amalekites were direct descendants of Nephilim. They were devil worshippers and soothsayers, magicians, and they love to talk to demons more than they love to talk to God. A lot of people love to talk to demons more than they love to talk to God. I just don't think we always understand that it's a demon we're talking to. But I'm going to tell you something. The spirits of the disembodied Nephilim have to go somewhere. And just let that little The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim have to go somewhere. I do believe that we are near to, end times. And in those end times, we're going to see some things that you're not going to like. But the reality of it is, you have to know where you stand and who you serve. Because at the end of the day, I stand for integrity. I stand for doing something good for somebody, not expecting a reward. That's wrong. You should never expect a reward for doing something nice. It's not what you did it for. And if that's why you did it, you're wrong. Hold the door open for somebody because you have the opportunity to do so. And you're grateful for the opportunity to do so. Anything less than that is unspeakably evil. It's a great opportunity we have to breathe. And it's a great opportunity we have to be conscious, sentient beings. Because we could be trees. A tree doesn't get to pick where it's planted. It doesn't get to pick its seasons. Doesn't get to come inside. Doesn't get to do anything but sit there and grow. And if somebody decides to cut off a branch, they cut off a branch. If somebody decides to cut off all of its branches, they do. If somebody decides to take all of its bark off and watch it wither and die, they can do so. And what can the tree do in response? Nothing. And we are not that. If somebody is hurting us, we can say something, we can do something, we can move. And it's super scary because we take that for granted. And it's such a silly thing. But play a little game with yourself where you can't move your hands. And see how long you can go, how long before you need help. And if that's too extreme for you, tie your dominant hand behind your back. Or slip your finger in your back belt loop and hold it there of your dominant hand. And do normal tasks with just your other hand, your non-dominant hand. See how long before you drop something or need to use the other hand. It's difficult. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean that it's not going to benefit you. Alright, well, I gotta go now. You have a good day. Hope you enjoyed the rambling. Like I said, I'm gonna have a book together soon where it's basically a compilation of bloodlines, all created beings. That'll have like 16 volumes. They're all like pocket sized. So that'll be fun. And from there, I think we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna finish the book, and hopefully from there, just have a good experience with writing and exploring and digging deeper. Anyway, you guys have a good day.